great to be with you, and some very interesting names popping into the attendee bar. It's great to have all of you, and we sincerely hope that you're going to be enjoying today's presentation. I can see there's a couple of people logging in, and so while they're all doing that, let's get through some housekeeping issues for today's presentation. So thank you very much for being with us today. It's great to have you. I can recognize some of the names, some are good friends, and so thank you so much for being with us for today's presentation. It's also very, very important so that to say thank you to Testo. Thank you so much to the Testo team. They're one of our sterling clients. I think we need to give them the Client of the Year award again this year. They really are such loyal clients. We really appreciate working with them. Thank you so much for being part of today's presentation. Today, the topic we're going to be talking about is the digitalization of food safety. I think the very fact that we're actually chatting on a digital platform is just so indicative of how digital solutions have become part of our new normal going forward. And as a result of a lot of work that I know Testo have been doing for a number of years now, they have a really, really interesting solution that they would like to share with you. There's been a lot of work going on in the background, and we're going to be hearing not only from Testo, but also from Hungry Lion, because they've actually got a case study that they want to share with you using this particular solution. So whether we're in incoming goods, in refrigerated rooms, in food preparation, or in food service, many retail stores, restaurant chains, we have loads and loads of time-consuming quality checks and a lot of data that's collected, but very difficult and complex to analyze. Testo have provided a number of really efficient solutions, and this is great. It frees us from mountains of paper and data chaos, but it also gives us full transparency. And so today we're going to be talking about digital quality and food safety management systems, because they have the potential to achieve considerable savings from a time and a money perspective. We're going to be hearing from Chris, Johan and Warren, all experts from Testo South Africa, and they're going to explain to us how to optimize not only quality assurance within our restaurant or retail store, but also how we can have more time to add value using the real activities that count. What I'm really looking forward to today is it's not just a sales presentation. We have Jonathan Simmons from Hungry Lion, who's going to be chatting to us, giving us his first-hand experience of the benefits of the Testo system, because he's actually implemented the system within his restaurants, and he's going to be able to tell us, you know, some of the great advantages, but also some of those things that we have to look out for if we do decide to go digital with our food safety management system. So without further ado, let's get stuck into today's presentation. And so it gives me great pleasure to introduce our first two speakers, and they are from Testo. So while I'm doing this, Johan, Chris, why don't you bring yourselves onto camera so that everybody can see who you are. I'm going to take myself off camera. There you go. Hi, Chris. Hi, Johan. Welcome, and it's great to have you with us. So let's have a look and see who Chris and Johan are. Chris is the Managing Director of Testo South Africa. You'll hear from his accent, he's obviously not South African. He's originally from Austria. He studied economics in Vienna, but he's been a South African since 2006. And in all that time, I've known and worked with Chris in the food industry, lots and lots of hard work in major retailers, the QSR, as well as the big manufacturers, but not just food, pharmaceutical, power generation, as well as high-back. He is passionate about accurate measuring data. I remember having conversations with him around calibration, and really at the end of the day, he's trying to spearhead Testo to assist clients in making better and more informed decisions. With him, you can see Johan. Johan started his life as an electrical engineer and then moved into instrumentation and projects. He loves problem solving. He has to answer all my stupid questions when it comes to the instrumentation and calibration. He's the project manager, and he drives the Food Safety Solution Division. So he really is the technical expert when it comes to the digital solutions, and he's obviously there as the support function. So gents, without further ado, we'd really like to hear from you, and so I'm going to be passing the screen over to you, Chris, and we'd really like to hear your presentation. For everyone in the audience, don't forget, as soon as that question pops into your head, make sure you pop it into the question bar so that we can make sure that we ask Chris and Johan the questions at the end of their presentation. Chris, over to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Linda, thank you very much for introducing us so nicely. I briefly want to go through what you're going to hear in the next hour. I'm going to speak a little bit about Testo and then about digital quality management systems. Then Johan will go more in detail about our system. Then we have some time for questions. Then Jonathan, and I really need to say a big thank you to Jonathan Simmons from Hungry Lion, that he will share some of what they have done with all this data to use that much better. And after that, I'm going to speak again about what are really the benefits of such a system, where does this help you? And then Warren, at the end, he will speak a couple of minutes of what other instruments we have and what other services we are offering for the food industry. Yeah, this will be roughly the next hour. So let me start a little bit about Testo, and I don't want to do this too long. Most of you guys know us. Testo is a world market leader when it comes to portable measuring instruments. We don't do just portable, but in that field, in portable, we're definitely world market leader. We offer instruments for the food industry, for the pharma industry, then heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration. Basically the tools from the guys who come to your site to fix and do maintenance on your cold storage. And then we have other instruments like for heavy industry, such as thermal cameras, gas analyzers, for ESCOM as an example. Yeah, sometimes I wonder if they use them a lot because the power just came back here. Yeah, Testo itself is more than 60 years around. Testo is the company who has invented the first electronic thermometer back in the 50s. And yeah, we came a long way from there. These days, Testo has about 3,200 employees worldwide. We are active in 27 countries. And in South Africa, we are 20 people, and we have 2 offices. And on both sites, in Cape Town and in Johannesburg, we run SANAS accredited laboratories. Yeah, so much about us. I don't want to bother you with that much longer. Linda, I would like to show a little video, and this video it's more targeted for restaurants, but it's very similar for retail outlets. So maybe Linda, you can take back and show this video. It's about 4 minutes.
Thanks, Chris. Here we go, everybody. Here's the Testo video.
What comes to mind when you think about food safety? A confusingly large number of quality controls and readings? The laborious documentation and analysis of all relevant data? Reputation-damaging food scandals? At Testo, we have talked to our customers and industry experts, and we are convinced. There's an easier way to do quality management too. That's why we have combined our state-of-the-art management software with both our measuring technology know-how and a comprehensive range of services in developing the flexible Testo South Restaurant Quality Management System. Testo South Restaurant reproduces your quality handbooks digitally. For you, that means no paper at all. Digital convergence of all quality and measurement data in one system. Rollout at the touch of a button. Quality handbooks are distributed to all connected restaurants in next to no time. Individual adaptations. It only takes a few minutes to adapt the digital quality handbook to the local requirements of the individual restaurant. Fewer errors. employees are guided through standardized quality controls step by step. All quality controls run hand in hand, which means the error rate is minimized. The flexible Testo South restaurant measuring technology is intuitive to use, and the system's data loggers provide automated transmission of readings to the cloud. Fast response. When there are violations of limit values, alarms are displayed on the control unit. This enables employees to intervene to rectify the problem immediately through guided corrective actions. Alarms are also possible via email and SMS. Different alarm recipients can be defined both for times when the business is open and when it is closed. Complete transparency. All data are automatically documented, securely stored, and available at all times for audits, analyses, and process optimizations, both in the restaurant and also at a higher level. Let's have a look at the specific ways that Testo South restaurant can be used. In incoming goods, a really wide range of products from different suppliers have to be checked. No change here, even with our solution. However, instead of a paper list, employees now have a tablet in their hands, the control unit. It guides you reliably through all the work steps with pre-stored processes, and predefined corrective actions make it clear what needs to be done. If, for instance, a spot check reading doesn't meet the specifications. In refrigerated rooms, a sensor checks whether the door is closed, as well as the air and product temperature. If the door isn't closed, an alarm notification, including corrective actions, appears on the control unit. During food preparation, the multifunction handle can be connected to interchangeable probes for temperatures or cooking oil quality in seconds. The instructions, limit values, and corrective actions stored on the control unit make work even more reliable and efficient. However, because quality is not just defined in terms of readings, Testo South restaurant also supports employees with specific checklists when it comes to compliance with and inspection of all hygiene standards in the restaurant. Testo South restaurant means you always have the complete picture in terms of the correct implementation and fulfillment of your quality standards, even when you're out and about. And if something doesn't go to plan, you can respond immediately. When there are complaints or audits, you have your full digital archive available at the touch of a button, with absolute reliability and no stress at all. What's more, our comprehensive service package relieves you of responsibility and stress, from planning, via installation, through to support and calibration. So, get rid of the piles of paper and data chaos. Testo South restaurant gives you complete control and greater efficiency when it comes to quality management in your restaurant. Enter the world of digital quality management now with Testo South restaurant.
I just wanted to say that I hope this video gave a nice overview about what a digital system can do, and was summarizing this quite nicely. I'm going to highlight a couple of points here. One of the major points here is that at the moment, often you have checklists which are written on paper. Then they get filed. It's very difficult to analyze them. If a system is digital, many of you in the audience having teams who are looking after food safety and quality assurance, you can really dig in and see, on a daily basis, on a dashboard, are these checks done? And as well what the outcome of that was. And instead of filing these papers, you will be able to look at them on a daily basis. Here's another example. Here you see a check where temperatures are filled in. In a digital world, you have not a paper checklist where somebody writes something in. There's always a point of error. These checks are performed on a tablet. And then we have devices like thermometers or oil testers, which are connected via Bluetooth to the tablet where the people perform their checks, and real measuring data is going into the system instead of just writing something on a paper checklist. And I'm sure most of you have seen these paper checklists. Either they are not filled out complete, sometimes they're pre-filled out. Here you really know with a time and a date stamp that the measurement was taken, by whom it was taken, so you can trust that data much more. Then another point, getting rid of all this paper. This is a picture from, from one of a retailer, filing cabinets. I mean, just imagine finding some information in there. On our solution, everything is stored centrally in the cloud, on a cloud server. And when you want to look through things and you really want to dig into problem areas and so on, you will be able to find that much easier via dashboards where you can dig in deeper and deeper. Say, okay, maybe you see first this region performs better than another one. Then you dig in on the restaurants and so on. So you can see patterns and you can analyze that data much better. What we heard in the video as well was temperature monitoring of cold rooms and freezers. If you not do so already, that is something we can add on to have stationary temperature sensors. And I mean, it's not just for compliance, it's as well about shelf life, it's about reducing wastage. We've seen tests with clients that then a fridge just sometimes runs a little bit too cold and your tomatoes and lettuce are freezing. And obviously that's not ideal for product quality and you want to avoid discarding products. Another point mentioned here, and Johan will speak about this very much in detail, but that we are able as Testo to measure cooking oil quality. This is our own developed sensor, which is around for quite some time, and it measures the total polar material. And what we've seen all over the world, not just in South Africa, but in South Africa as well, that oil is usually discarded much too early. And that costs money. That affects directly your bottom line. And again, Johan will speak about this much more in detail. And look, I'm not saying this is you in your position, but you want to be sure that the quality manuals and all the quality checks which you are developing, that they are implemented correctly. And often the situation is that head office or regional managers, they don't know this for sure. Yes, you have audits and you look at the paper and then you assume that the situation before and afterwards will be similar. But if you have all that data from these checks, temperature checks, manual checks, hygiene checks, whatever, if you have them on a dashboard and you see other people doing this, then you have a much better overview and you can concentrate on the problem areas rather than just going through in a routine way. Okay, I want to hand over now to Johan. Johan will do this from my screen as well. He will give you more details about the system which we can offer to you.
Thanks, Chris. Johan, looking forward to hearing from you. Over to you.
Thank you. Sorry, I just want to find my spot. Okay, so how does a Testo South Africa's food solution work? What are we offering with hardware and software? So what we do is we take your procedure, your quality checks, like your opening and closing checks, like your daily cleaning checks, your receiving checks, checks that you do in various departments, and of course your daily temperature checks that are very critical. All those checks we convert onto the digital platform. The software is very configurable. It's every client, of course, has a different checks and procedure. Then, of course, you have maybe a yes or no questions that you need to answer. Depending on the answer, the operator will then be guided through the app with the help of pictures as well. And then you can also take photos as proof, or you can leave comments into the system. So after we receive all your paper checks, we convert that, as I mentioned, onto the digital platform. All that information with a click of a button then get transferred through the cloud and the Wi-Fi to your store or to the tablets that are running into the store. Then with connection with Wi-Fi loggers as well, if you need to monitor critical equipment that are not monitored, we monitor that, and if there's any alarming, all that information get back to your head office onto the cloud, and then you can easily adapt and you can change the quality handbook if needed, and then by pressing a button, all that updated manual is then transferred to each tablet. So the hardware that we use is our own Testo app, which we then put onto a tablet device. So all the information and questions will be on the device. And so with that, we then provide you, when you do temperature checks, we will add a Bluetooth thermometer, which then automatically transfer your temperature values onto the app. You don't need to manually enter that. It gets transferred automatically with the Bluetooth. And the same when we do your well checks, that information and values are also transferred onto the system. As mentioned, additionally, if you want to monitor equipment, your under-counter fridges, upright freezers, cold rooms, display cabinets, freezers, all those critical equipment we can monitor. If there's an alarm limit that reached, the tablet and the app will receive that warning, and then the operator will be guided through various steps to look into the problem and to correct that. Also, email alarms will be notified when there's problems. Some examples of use, as mentioned in the videos as well, receiving checks that easily can be added onto the digital app, where you can do your checks on your truck, temperature checks, your best before sell date, all those information that are required, you can add onto the system. As mentioned, temperature, hot food holding, all those critical checks that need to happen, you do that onto the system by pressing a button. The values will be transferred, and you can trust those values that are entered into the system. Your food display in a store, so you can easily check those checks that are the food packed correctly and in neat order, and also if there's no expiry products on your shelf, those type of checks you can add onto the system. Another example is measuring your cooking oil daily with our Testo cooking oil instrument, and this has a very big advantage for your customer, or for your food and for the business. So what do you see on your instrument, and how does it work? You insert a probe into your warm oil, and on the display you will then see the temperature of the oil, and you will also see a percentage of your TPM value. Now, the instrument quickly and reliably determines the quality of your cooking oil. So to do so, it measures the total polar material content, and it gives that into percentage. So as the oil ages, that percentage will increase. A high TPM value have an effect on taste, quality, and of course your color of your cooked product. According to South Africa, government regulations is that 25% is the maximum value of TPM that is allowed. And what we've seen in South Africa and around the world, people normally discard oil too soon. They look only at color, or they replace the oil, say on a Monday morning when the store is not so busy. So they've got like that basic routine going, and they don't worry really about the quality and what the oil looks like. Some companies use visual strips, and they are very expensive after time, and it's also an objective method of checking your oil. And as mentioned, oil is a very big expense in your business, and oil can be used longer when you do daily checks using this instrument and tool that we can offer. So what we've seen is extension of the oil usage in your fryers. You can easily accomplish that. We've seen up to 35% of saving of your oil expense. And we put that into the rand value. Of course, depends on the size of your store or your business. You can get up to between 2,000 and 4,000 rand savings per month per store. And that is a lot of saving. Now that we've connected all these hardware and paper checks. Of course, all that data then gets centralized on a software, and it is visible now from a website with dashboards. So you consider your head office, you can look into your regions, and you can easily determine which region are not performing. Also, regional managers can focus on their particular stores and then focus on those problems. Store managers can also look at various departments in the store and focus on the problems. With all this information, it's now very easy to have an overview and to have control of your store or your restaurant. As a very simple example that I can show you is, this is a day shift versus a night shift. The day shift, they have done 62% of their checks on time, versus a night shift that's only done 37% of their checks on time. So that's a clear, quick indication to see where are problems, who's performing, who's complying and not, and of course, the managers can act on that. That is the end of my slide. Thank you. I think we are now open for some questions for Chris and myself. Well, Linda, back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That was a very, very informative overview of how the solution works. And so I'm very keen to hear a little bit more in terms of some of the details. So we've got a couple of questions from audience. Please, ladies, gentlemen, who, for those of you that are out there, now's the right time to pop in your questions, because we obviously want to make sure that you get the opportunity to ask some questions. And maybe you'll have some more questions after we've heard from Jonathan from Hungry Lion, but just a couple off the top. So you obviously, as you said, the video is very much focused on the restaurant sector. But, you know, how adaptable is it when it comes to manufacturing? Johan, you made the point that you're going to use my checklists. So what are the restrictions when it comes to the checklist type or the checklist format? Are you only using a yes or no kind of checklist, or are you able to capture specific values? You know, when a temperature, for example, could I even upload photos as a result of the, you know, the checklist?
Okay, let me maybe answer this question. Look, the system is quite flexible, but it is designed for quick service restaurants and for retail at the moment. But how it would work is that you take your paper checklists, you have a question, and then you define, what answer do I want? Do I want a yes or no answer? Do I want a drop-down menu? Do I want a measurement? Then it will tell you to take the Bluetooth thermometer or the oil tester. You perform this measurement, press a button, then it goes into a system. You can have as well a text field, but always depending on that answer, it will guide the operator through. But again, at the moment, the system is designed for quick service restaurants and for retail, because, and to an extent for catering as well, but manufacturing often has so many different checks which we're then not able to put in fully. But I think that we have to as well evaluate on a one-on-one basis. I hope this was answering your question.
Absolutely. So I think it's a case of, or rather you're saying, look at it case by case. At the moment, you know, and you've tested it for that those particular sectors, which already gives us a lot of flexibility. And to be perfectly frank, from my perspective, I think the more we can, you know, help those retail stores, the better, because, you know, that's always been an area where it's quite difficult to make sure that we are, you know, complying with requirements in a practical way. At the end of the day, I do love the trust aspect. You know, I've actually done audits where I've come upon people that are filling in, you know, audit check or rather temperature checklists and those kinds of things during the audit. I've even been lucky enough to find checklists that have been completed for days still to come, you know, so predictive food safety. So I think the, you know, the trust component and the validation component of individual checks, I think is definitely something which I find very appealing. We have a question here regarding the email notifications, right? So if I understood you correctly, Johan, you said that when it comes to you know, alerts and things like that, where things are not you know, done in the correct way, currently the system is then allowing, or rather is going to an email, not necessarily I mean, is it possible to rather have a WhatsApp or a, you know, some sort of notification coming to a phone app? Because yeah, I think if it's something that needs urgent attention and I'm in a meeting or something, not being able to access email for a few hours could actually become a problem. How much more flexible are we working on the system to make it available to phone notifications?
Yeah, sorry, to add on, you can have the option of email or SMS notification for a person when there's a problem or a Wi-Fi logger reach a limit, temperature limits, then it can be SMS or email. The options are there.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, no, I just think in some cases it's, you know, the SMS option would most definitely be a better option. So very glad to hear about that. I think when it comes to the other questions that I'd like to pose, I'd like to hang on to them until we get to hear from Jonathan. One point, Johan, I do think the cost savings regarding the oil testing is very, very interesting. Just the opposite side of that, what are we looking at in terms of the cost of an oil tester? So you said potentially I can save 2,000 to 4,000 Rand a month depending on my oil usage. In other words, how quickly will I pay off my oil tester?
Yeah, look, the oil tester I was speaking about is part of the whole system. We do have as well standalone oil testers there in the region, not 100% sure with the exchange rate, but in the region of about 8,000 Rand. So the return on investment is only a couple of months. But nevertheless, with having everything digital, having an instrument is one thing, having the discipline that everybody's doing it and so on. That is often the challenge. I've spoken with retailers years ago, and they said the instrument is fantastic, but I'm struggling that people are checking it on a color chart. So, you know, now we bring in with software and with connecting all that information and that data, we're bringing that together, that there's really a benefit made with such an instrument, and it's not just lying around.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I can definitely see that, and I think the way that the system is structured, obviously, you know, the system is pushing you to perform those checks, and if the checks are not, you know, not completed, then obviously you're going to receive automatic alerts, which just makes it far easier to manage by exception. Thank you, Johan. Thank you, Chris. Chris, I know we're coming back to you after we've chatted to Jonathan, but I think now would be a really good time for us to switch our presenters. And so I'm going to ask Jonathan Simmons to join us. Chris, Johan, you can switch your camera off. I'm going to ask that Jonathan switches on his camera so that we can come across to you, Jonathan. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from you, because I think it's now going to be from the trenches. So let's just give you a bit of a background to Jonathan. He's the operations or commercial analyst at Hungry Lion, and Hungry Lion is a chicken QSR business. He loves data, he loves insight, he's a number cruncher, because the point is that we collect all this data, but how can we use it to improve business performance? That's exactly what Jonathan's passion is and what he does at Hungry Lion. So I can only imagine that he asked some very, very awkward questions when it came to the implementation of the system, but more importantly, he is an advocate for using technology and data because it can improve our efficiencies. So I'm very interested to hear, Jonathan, what have you actually gained as a an organization when it comes to the implementation of this Testo South Africa system within your QSR restaurants? Over to you.
Thanks very much for the introduction, Linda. Yeah, so to give you a bit of background, I come from an operational background in retail and QSR, so I've got a very strong understanding of everything at a store detail level. And ultimately, one of the greatest challenges that we've always got is the discipline from a management perspective. Teams in stores actually fulfilling their duties, collecting the information that we need them to go through and to check to ensure the overall safety of the business. And basically, you know, the introduction of the Testo South system in Hungry Lion has been quite a long journey. However, it's been exceptionally meaningful for us. It's been able to take us from a position where there was an assumption that things were happening in stores to now a finite, definitive role where we understand all the intricacies of, you know, are the checks being completed? Is the detail of those checks valid? You know, Chris was speaking about the integrity of the information earlier, and we now have peace of mind in our business that, you know, we are getting the teams to focus on the areas that they should. That data is coming through, we're able to review it, and it's really been very meaningful for us. So basically where we started was that every bit of information that we were pulling from the system came from the Testo dashboard. Now, we're a relatively large organization. We've got a large amount of regional managers, and each one of those regional managers has, you know, a number of facets that they need to be focusing on. So every time that they were wanting to look at information, they'd be looking at different dashboards from different service providers. And basically what that would mean that every time we adopted a new technology service to be integrated into our technology and data tracking, we landed up being in a position where there was an adoption challenge, and, you know, the regional managers would go through basically checks and balances and not necessarily understand the structure of those things. So my role was to come in and create a world where regional managers can see all of their actionable insights and exceptions data in the same area. So I'm a BI specialist, and my ultimate goal was to host all of our data across all our different service providers, our own internal sales data, and everything in the Hungry Lion world in the same BI tool. We use Google Cloud, and basically Data Studio is the BI tool as part of that offering. And what we've landed up being able to do with the help of the Testo team is they've been able to avail our data to us in Google Cloud and basically process that information for us so that we can blend that data and read it all in our BI tools. Now, what that lands up doing for us is it gives us the ability to create familiarity with the dashboard pages. I build all of my dashboard pages in a similar fashion. We predominantly focus on the exceptions that need to take place, because obviously, you know, every operational team has got a lot to go through. So we focus specifically on our exceptions, and the goal of that is to improve that user adoption, to improve the insights that can be gained by the regional manager team. So myself as an analyst, I don't need to be sitting in a position where from head office I'm disseminating, you know, issues that are being identified, that I'm steering them in the right direction. Our team can actually go into their dashboards, they can see the history of the data coming through. They can track the performance of their stores, their teams, the actual managers on the ground, and they can take action basically on the insights that we've gained from the system. We also ensure that the data feed is consistent, and we've made sure that we can actually consume our data on a daily basis rather. So our new reality is that all of our regional managers have access to their data. They have it in a format that is only relevant to them, so they're not seeing the clutter of everything else in the Hungry Lion world. They focus specifically on their stores and the amount of information that is relevant to them. Also, again, focusing on those exceptions and having everything in the same BI tool gives us a great understanding of the data, and it helps us to drive the action and to improve the overall business standards. And I think that's the crux of it, is using these types of tools to put us in a position where we can actually improve the overall standards in our business. And we've certainly done that. I'll just take you through some of the focuses in terms of the pages that I've been able to put together for our teams. We focus on summary performance overall, and basically using the data coming through from the Testo devices at store. We're able to focus on our mischecks to drive overall compliance, which is obviously a very critical thing. But more importantly, that the integrity of the information coming through is of a high quality. So we're focusing on our deviations and our critical deviations. In the Testo world, those are violations. Again, this is something that's our jargon in Hungry Lion. The ability to create our own BI tools has allowed us to use our language, so that user adoption process is nice and high. But focusing on these deviations and critical deviations in our business has allowed us to move from a world where there are tick box exercises taking place from a store perspective. Linda, you were referring to the fact that you've seen checklists completed in advance, or the guys going to autopilot and they're not even reading the questions properly. These types of checks definitely allow us to focus on the quality of that information coming through. And we've seen a lot more deviations coming through from our teams at store, which is obviously very, very good. It allows us to focus on trends. It allows us to look at our history back in time to actually filter out those areas that are of concern. And those issues being identified allow us to change and model and improve our overall objectives in terms of our operational compliances. Further to this, we're able to zone in and really zoom into where the regions are poor performing. We can look at the multiple metrics. In this slide, I'm actually taking you through the stores that have missed the most amount of checks, the regions that have missed the most amount of checks, and where those checks were missed. Was it in our opening checklist? Was it in our charm walks, which is our operational health and safety checks? All of those kinds of things. And then the different areas, were storerooms an issue? Were our freezer rooms an issue? So we can really zone into the detail of where we need to focus. Again, at the bottom, we've got a pivot table that we allow our teams to see. That really gives them a nice high level of focus on where they need to actually focus their attentions. Looking at the different regions and the different areas in multiple different views allows us to give the user a very quick overview of where they need to pay attention, and again, focusing on those exceptions. But exceptions and overview is a very good way of looking at things, but we wanted the detail of the information being collected to be at a granular enough level that our regional managers and store teams could focus on specific stores, specific branches, specific questions being asked on a specific day in store. And that allows us to isolate and identify teams that are weaker than others in terms of their overall compliance checks, stores that are creating a tick box mentality in terms of completion. And that's certainly allowed us to improve our overall standards. It's helped us to be in a world where we know that the data has improved our overall compliance levels, and ultimately the overall operational standards have absolutely improved and definitely been a much better focus. The centralized views also allow our managers to be in a world where they can remote manage their stores. They don't have to physically be on premise to actually go through the checks, to actually hold people accountable. This can be done remotely from either their home workspace or in a remote store. We've got some regions that are massive. In Namibia, for instance, you'll do a 2,500 kilometer trip from one store to another in the same region. And this remote managing ability has really helped us improve. Before I get to the end of this, I'd just like to sum up where we've really won. Remote managing for the regional manager teams, our overall oil lifespan has improved dramatically. The change function of our oil processes has absolutely got integrity now, and we know that we're receiving much longer lifespans in terms of oil usage in our fryers, and we know that that fryer is still producing good quality product, and we know that our customers are having a great eating experience due to that. And then finally, holding managers and the store teams accountable has been a massive benefit for us. So that's Testo in our Hungry Lion world. It's been immeasurably successful for us, and we really value the relationship with the team. They've been great in helping us develop our tools, develop our checklists, and they really are always very quick to jump in and help us find a solution to any potential problem that we bring to light. That's it. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jonathan. That's great. Just let's hold the slide there for now so that we can just chat through a few questions. Audience, I'm sure that there are a couple of you looking at the names of the people that are attending today that are most definitely in a similar kind of position, a similar kind of environment. You've got QSRs, you've got stores. So I think now would be a good time to ask some questions. Because I think what Jonathan is saying definitely raises a couple in my mind. And so I'm going to go ahead while you are all typing in your questions, because I think it's really, really wonderful that we have an opportunity to talk to you, Jonathan, about your experiences. Thank you so much for coming forward from that point of view, you know, to talk about the real life struggles. You mentioned a long journey. Okay, so now I want to focus on the word long, because I think that I'm taking from that this is not a quick fix. So if this is not a quick fix, it definitely has benefits, but how long has this journey in fact been, from start of proof of concept all the way through to the implementation within all your stores?
So I think it's important to note that it never is a quick fix. There's no silver bullet in any environment, and also you don't know what you don't know. So it's a great question, and you know, the journey has been long for us because we didn't know where we needed to focus. You live in an environment where, you know, everything's happening manually at store, and from a remote perspective, sitting at head office, the head of operations was blind to what was happening in stores. And you know, you take the teams at store at face value, you hope that they're following those processes. And as you start seeing the digitization of these checklists, these health and safety checks, you start noticing that, hang on, there's a lot less compliance level than we initially thought. Then you're having to drive basic compliance levels. So, you know, your focus very quickly starts moving from one space to another. Then we started focusing on the quality of the checks, you know, making sure that the teams weren't completing a tick box exercise. And all of these processes take a few months, you know, the user adoption, getting the store teams to understand that we're viewing the data, we're actually paying attention, we're seeing the value of it. And that process does take time. We've had Testo in our business for a number of years now. I started as the BI analyst for the team about 2 years ago. And this journey does take some time. You very quickly start realizing, okay, you know, as great as the tool is, we have shortcomings from a people perspective. And that's normally what takes a while to get your overall levels of compliance where they need to be.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, to me that's the trick with any system, right? You know, because ultimately you can use hardware, you can use software, but you're still relying on people to take these checks. You know, some of them you may be able to completely automate, but you know, based on what I'm seeing, there's still a level of human interaction, which means we've got to get people on board at the end of the day. What you mentioned that, you know, I suppose you had a bit of a disjointed view between yourselves at head office and stores. What kind of store involvement was necessary in order to, you know, create a system that was actually meeting both parties' objectives? Because obviously head office has a particular objective, but the store also surely would want to benefit from this, and I'm sure has benefited from it. Yes. How did you approach the kind of bifocal approach to the system?
So what we've established is that our previous operational checks were quite cumbersome. We had a lot of redundant things because of duplication in numerous checks, and it's massively benefited the stores because they've been in a position where they could escalate to us. You know, you see that I'm checking these things on a regular basis. We were able to quantify the durations of those checks. So we've actually streamlined our checks, and we moved from, I think it was 5 or 6 checks per shift to now one large overview checklist, and that takes a lot less time for the store teams to complete, and it makes their engagement in the process a lot more legitimate. You know, they're not trying to rush through things. Ultimately, they're there to sell chicken in our environment. We don't want them to be bogged down with checklists. So we've definitely streamlined things from that perspective, and it's definitely meant that we're seeing a much more focused manager, a manager that can complete his checks much faster, and ultimately focus his attention on the store teams and the interpersonal things that need to be managed at store level, which is always obviously a large focus for a successful business.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I've got a whole bunch of other stuff, but we still need to give Warren a chance. So it would be nice to have a conversation with you off air, particularly around the sort of food safety cultural aspects, because we've got to get people to buy into a system ultimately. Thank you so much. Thank you for the transparency. Thank you very much for everything that you were able to share with us today. We really, really do appreciate it. Chris, I'm going to ask you to come back online because I'm over to you.
Yeah, Jonathan, I really want to say thank you. It was great to hear some insights from you. You have mentioned a couple of points I wanted to mention here because I just want to summarize what are the real benefits which a retail store or a quick service restaurant gets out of such a system. I've grouped them in 3 sections. The first one is quality improvement and improvement on customer experience. So obviously all these checks you're doing, you're not doing them for fun. There's a reason why everybody of you guys in the audience, why you developed them. But now you have transparency. You see that these checks are happening. You have a certainty that your oil quality is correct. And with that as well, the fried products are correct. Temperature monitoring of food storage. Obviously, don't need to talk about that in detail. That all goes to shelf life and as well quality products. If you have hygiene checks, if you have visual checks on how the retail store or the restaurant is looking, you will have a more appealing store if everything is in order. And all in all, that hopefully leads to less customer complaints and to a much better customer experience. And that's at the end of the day what I think everybody is after. The next point, or group of points I have here together is the transparency with having the data available in a digital format. And Jonathan mentioned that we have since recently available, an API that the data which you're capturing in the system, you don't necessarily need to look at it via our dashboards because every customer is different and business intelligence is growing and growing. And I think some very simple things like what Jonathan mentioned, sometimes it's called a non-compliance, the next one calls it a critical deviation and so on. And you want to speak the same language and all of that is possible now. But really the integrity of data is given. You know that the checks are done at the correct time and by whom they are done, or they are not done, but you know it. You have performance overviews of restaurants. You can set KPIs for managers. You can monitor them. You can even incentivize on them. You have improvements of audits. Just think about how much time is wasted on an audit to look for the right information. Here you have things, you can filter on a press of a button. You have the things available. And all in all of that should lead to more legal compliance. And then I think the most important group is obviously the cost savings. We spoke about oil. Yeah, there's a huge potential. 2,000 to 4,000 rand a month easily. Obviously, it depends how many fryers do you have. If you have no fried products at all, then you won't save on oil. But in general, there is a huge savings potential. Paper printing, it's a small factor, but it all adds up. That's as well 100 or 200 rand a month. Time savings for staff on the floor. Often temperature checks are done. People are going with a thermometer around, that takes 1-2 hours a day. That person could do something else. Time savings for regional managers or for yourself. Regional managers, and I need to use Jonathan's words here. They're looking for exceptions. And I know one statement which was so good from Hungry Lion, it was, we rather manage by exception than managing by the rule. Instead of having an area manager or a regional manager going from store to store to store and in a routine, he can focus now on the problem areas and not waste his time. Storage cost of paper checklists, yeah, it's a small thing, but you've seen, I think it was on my first slide, I guess the the areas where you rent for your retail outlets or restaurants, they're often not the cheapest. You know, it's as well a couple of square meters wasted. Product waste, we spoke about that already. Another point here, call-out fees for maintenance is as well what the customer told me. He said, look, when my fridges fail, the maintenance guys come out and they tell me 9 out of 10 times was unnecessary. It was the fridge wasn't cleaned properly, there was some water buildup and so on, and that's why the cooling elements didn't work in the way they should. And yeah, things like that. You can have a check, you know, before you call the maintenance for a failing fridge, you go through this checklist. Then another point here, staff training versus guidance with a tablet. We've spoken a little bit about that topic, but the point that you can guide the operator through the steps he needs to do, depending on an answer. Like if there's a non-compliance, there's a no as an answer. You display now you need to do this. I mean, a very simple example, you know, I've seen this as well at a retailer. Are the lights working at the hot food counters? No. Are the lights next day? Are the lights working at the hot food counters? No. Next day, are the lights working at a hot food counter? No. Nothing happens after that. If there's a no as an answer, you can trigger. Okay, now go to your manager, get some light bulbs, whatever, you know. And all of that as well from the other categories I had together. You know, we all still remember the listeria outbreak and what the reputation loss, how much that can cost a company. And with having your quality checklists much better under control and the knowledge that they are done and that you act when they are not done, that will help you that something really goes wrong. And obviously the reputation of a brand can be destroyed through something like this. Okay, I think now I'm at the end of my presentation. That was just summarizing it a little bit. Yeah. I always like to end with that picture because I hope that your job will look like this if you have a system from us. Yeah, maybe that's dreaming, but I hope we could present the benefits to you of a digital quality management system. I want to hand over now. I mean, we still have some, not too sure time-wise. From my side, we can go on a little bit longer. If you have some questions, feel free to ask. Afterwards, Warren will just speak a little bit. Warren is our key account manager for instrumentation for food and pharmaceutical instruments. And he will speak a little bit about just in general what instruments we have, maybe 5 minutes, and what services in terms of calibration and so we can offer. But if you have any questions, please ask them now.
Thanks, Chris. There are a couple of questions that I'm just going to throw to you. One is a response regarding your SMS comment, Johan. Although this is available, I think there are some challenges regarding limits of SMSs that are available on the system. So there's some specific feedback from Crystal, which obviously you guys will get, but I think her comment regarding potentially an app for push notifications is probably a good thing to look at when it comes to potential improvements on the system. I think the exciting question is obviously what are the costs? So we have a question from Candice regarding, you know, a fair cost estimation regarding your subscriptions on the hardware. Is it possible to use, you know, existing tablets and servers that a company has? So I'm going to leave this one because I know that you had mentioned, Chris, that it's obviously a case by case, but I have told Candice that you will definitely be contacting her in this regard so that you can talk through her specific requirements and you can provide her with an appropriate cost.
Yeah.
So
Linda, can I just answer on that? I just want to give a little bit a short statement about pricing. Obviously, you know, every project is different. It's not an out-of-the-box product, it's a project. But yes, to give you an overview, a small quick service restaurant, you can choose, do I actually need something for monitoring my fridges and freezer? Maybe you have already something there. Or do I just want the checklists with the instruments and so on? So it's quite a combination of things. But yeah, it starts roughly from a software licensing fee. If I say, okay, I just want tablets with the Bluetooth instruments and so on, and with license fees roughly starting from 800 Rand a month, depending now, obviously, if you're a retailer and a cash and carry and you have 20 tablets, then that will go up. Then it will be in the region of 2,000 Rand a month. That's on the software license. And on the tablets itself, I mean, we can install that. Either you can buy tablets from us, then we manage them, because often the thing is that you don't want your staff watching YouTube, installing funny things. You know, I have kids myself, then they take the tablet home and then it comes on the next day, there's Fortnite or some Barbie game installed, you know, and all that has clinches. So we can manage that for you. But the pricing on the tablets itself is, I mean, whatever, starting from maybe 2.5, 3, 4,000 Rand, depending on what tablets you're choosing. Obviously then with a housing, and the thermometers and so slightly more than our normal ones. You know, it depends then, because they have a Bluetooth model in there. So roughly, let's say a quick service restaurant, a small one with one tablet, a thermometer, plus an oil tester, plus maybe five to 10 monitoring points in the region of 15,000 Rand as a once-off costs. And then on the license fee, again, we have to look what equipment is hanging in there. From about 800 Rand, if it would be a lot, maybe 1,400 Rand on a monthly basis. And this is really, please don't hold me accountable. I'm just trying to give an overview. This is not, it's not a product.
Yeah, of course. No. And I think that it's the long journey that, that Jonathan mentioned, which I think has possibly other costs associated with it. So I think it's probably best to sit down and look at the project consistently and correctly before you just jump into assumptions regarding price. But it sounds like, at least for hardware and software, it's not kidneys that we'll have to sell, which is great. I'm very, very happy to, from a reasonable perspective, it sounds like those things are definitely affordable. So please make contact with Testo so that Chris can come and chat to you about your specific requirements and most definitely provide you with a proposal. Thank you very much, Chris. I'm now going to hand over to Warren. And as Chris said, Warren is the Key Accounts Manager. Thank you so much, Chris.
Hi, thank you very much for taking the time for us to see us. We are going a little bit over the time schedule, so I'll be as quick as I can. Essentially, as Chris mentioned, I do the instrumentation sales for the food and pharmaceutical divisions for Testo. We do a wide range of thermometers and infrared thermometers that can be utilized at store level, as well as combined infrared and probe thermometers. The various different applications you will probably already know, for your frozen food applications, cooked food applications, hot food prep, refrigeration, you name it, these thermometers will basically be able to perform that function for you. When it comes to the sort of infrared devices, these are great for doing spot measurements at store level, also doing spot measurements for receiving product, make sure your product gets received at the right temperature. We also provide a range of USB type data loggers as well as Wi-Fi data loggers. I'll go into the Wi-Fi loggers briefly, but basically the data loggers, USB data loggers, these are devices that you can basically put into your fridges and freezers, and you are able to then monitor those temperatures and download that information once a day, once a week, once a month. As we can see, some of the applications from your transportation all the way through to frozen foods, refrigeration, fresh foods, all these loggers can be utilized for these type of applications. Testo also have manufactured a couple of production type thermometers where you can place these thermometers through your production facilities and monitor the temperatures throughout the production of your product. Obviously, this would be more for the production side of things. When it comes to temperature monitoring, the general, or can I say the manual way of doing this would be a clipboard, piece of paper and a pen, and a person going around 2 or 3 times a day to do various different temperature checks and just checking that the fridges and freezers are at the right temperature. To improve on that process, the standard Testo data loggers, we can basically put those products, as I said, into your fridges and freezers, or even your hot holding areas, to basically monitor those environments and not have to take up somebody else's time to take temperature checks. Again, you can download this information, once a day, once a week, once a month. We also provide a Wi-Fi data logger. Wi-Fi data logger ultimately communicates information where you've put this data logger to the Testo cloud, and you're then able to access that information remotely via your cell phone, via tablet, via your PC from anywhere. These are very easy to install. They are battery operated, allows for live monitoring system of all those various different areas. It's also a scalable system. So ultimately, if you've got one area, now you want to add another area to that, you can just literally purchase another data logger, put it into that area, and let it continue to record. What we've also done is we've set up this is the sort of back end where you can see the information on what is being collected on the Testo cloud. As you can see it by your laptop or your PC or even by your mobile phone. What we've also done is put together a demo system, which is currently set up at our Joburg and our Cape Town offices, which are monitoring just the ambient environments live. You can log onto this. There we've included the links to log onto the system. You can see how it works. You can't break it. I promise you, I've tried. You can look and see what data is being collected by those loggers. Ultimately, feel free, give me a call. I'll help you get onto the live system, and you can view it for yourself, play around with the download reports, and see how it all works. Some of the other services that Testo offer are calibration services. Obviously, SANUS is a very important part of all of our lives, and we have, as Chris mentioned earlier, 2 SANUS calibration labs, one in our Joburg office, one in our Cape Town office. And there you can perform calibrations on either your penetration immersion probes, your surface calibrations, data logging calibrations, infrared calibrations, you name it, we can pretty much do that, as well as humidity calibrations as well. Number one of the other services that Testo also offer is on-site service work. So specifically for refrigeration warehouses and that, we can do on-site temperature mapping of those facilities where we can identify your hot and cold spots within your warehousing, which then you can then now identify exactly is your refrigeration working at the right right temperature or not. And then as well, we also do on-site calibrations as well. If need be, rather than sending your units to us, we will then come on-site, we'll do the calibrations on-site for you. And really that's, so breezing through the presentation, thank you very much for your time. I really do appreciate it. If you've got any questions, please feel free to give me a call or ask them now. Back to you, Linda.
Thanks, Warren. You can breathe now. That was a mouthful. Thank you so much, Warren. We have run out of time, but I know that you can't wait to chat to everybody. So everyone, just a reminder that as part of this presentation, you will be hearing from Testo. They will be making contact with you to ask if there are any other specific questions that they can assist you with. So please look out for that email. It will definitely be worth your while engaging with the team. Also, a final point for today's webinar, there are a number of handouts which are available to you before we end the webinar for you to be able to access their information. So we're going to stay live. Adele will stay live for another 5 minutes so that you can actually download those handouts. But also, please, if you have to log off now, just look out for the email from Chris or from Johan or from Warren so that they can give you some more information and to fill in all your questions. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Johan. Thank you, and to Warren. Thank you very much to Torsten in the background for giving us the opportunity to run today's Talkshop. And we look forward to chatting to you again in the future. And we look forward to some very, very good news from Testo regarding the outcome of today's presentation. Enjoy Tuesday, everybody. Chat to you soon.
Thank you, Linda. Bye-bye.
Thank you.